A couple months ago, I made this video right here, and I've never had a part 2 of a video so wildly requested. So here it is. Part 2 of your favorite YouTubers almost dying because of reptiles. Today we're going to talk about people who actually do dangerous stuff, not bald guys who sit in their basement. My name's Adam, this is Diamond, you're watching Wickens Wicked Reptiles. Stick around. Okay, a couple things. We're going to talk about some sensitive topics today. Free handling, wrestling alligators, things like that. Okay, let's just get into the... don't free handle reptiles, okay? I'm telling you, venomous snakes is what I mean. Don't free handle them. I'm not an advocate of it. I don't think it's a good idea for most people. You're probably not an expert. So anyway, let's just move on with the video. And we're going to talk about two different cases. We're going to talk about a lesser known guy, and we're going to talk about a guy who you probably know pretty well. So first up, Eric Farr. Okay, I don't know this guy. I've never talked to him, but I remember this video so vividly. 2017, okay? This guy, I think he was a YouTuber, or he was on social media of some sort anyway. He admitted himself. If you admit something, you're doing it yourself. Self-admittedly. Anyway, he said himself, he's basically doing this for the sake of doing this to show handling snakes. There's two different reactions between the first guy and the second guy. So anyway, Eric Farr, no disrespect. I don't know the guy, don't dislike him at all. Obviously what he did was silly goose stuff, and what he did is free handle a sidewinder. So a sidewinder is a type of viper. It's actually a rattlesnake that comes from, I believe, the Southwest US, but Matt's really good and he's gonna put up a map. Thanks, editor Matt. So in the video, basically he has a sidewinder, he's free handling it, he puts it on the ground. This is kind of a no-no. If you put a snake on the ground, it's probably gonna try to scurry away, and then now it's in defense mode. So he put it on the ground, then he makes it scurry away because it's scared, and then he tries to pick it up, maybe with a hook, I don't know, it's out of frame, it doesn't show. And then he gets bit, he reacts, and then he shows the next day his hand is fully swollen, and his arm is swollen. I don't laugh at him, I'm just laughing because his reaction, what I'm gonna tell you next. My snake handling days are over, he says, and that he's getting rid of all his snakes. He already had a buyer lined up the next day. Okay, so I don't know what the bill was. I'm sure he got in lots of trouble with his family, and just overall it's a bad look to do that. So obviously snake fangs are razor sharp, and so is today's sponsor, Henson Shaving. I'm talking about this amazingly manufactured, designed, and put together several pieces of aluminum. This safety razor is what I've been using for over a year. I was a customer before I was sponsored. And here's why. I'll always use this Henson safety razor, because most safety razors, well, you have issues, nicks, cuts, scratches, irritation. I don't experience that with this. I'd say not cutting yourself is a big deal. And the way that they accomplish this is because, well, Henson Shaving is an aerospace parts manufacturer. So they manufacture parts, things like the ISS, Mars rover, and now they're manufacturing something to shave your head. If they can manufacture parts to put into space, I think they're qualified to put something in your bathroom. What I'm getting at is the edge of the razor is supported almost all the way to the razor's edge. The problem is if it's unsupported, like with most safety razors, is it's going to have vibration. Vibration leaves room for error. Cuts, scratches, razor burn, things like that. Not only that, the clog-free design, okay? The channels are almost so big, I can see the camera lens through them. My issue with most safety razors is halfway through, they get so clogged with hair and shaving cream and things like that, you have to unscrew the handle, that's how you do it by the way, take it apart and then clean it out. This, you don't have that issue. It's not a good razor business though, because this is an aluminum razor. It's going to last you your entire life. You can keep this forever, and then you buy the blades. Each blade is gonna cost you, I don't know, 10, 12, 13 cents, depending. You don't have to buy a Henson razor blade. It's not proprietary, so it's gonna cost you $3, $4, $5 every year for razor blades. And I love that it's not a subscription service. They're not trying to get your money every month. You buy it once, that's it. So if you'd like a razor that lasts you a lifetime, go to hensonshaving.com/WWR. And when you use code WWR, you'll get 2 years worth of blades for free with your razor. Just make sure to add them to your cart. That's 100 free blades when you head to hensonshaving.com/WWR and use code WWR. Thanks Henson for sponsoring today's episode. Now, let's get back into a juicy story that you've probably never heard. Okay, so part 2, I think you guys know who I was going to talk about. I was requested not to, and I respect, I understand that these are traumatic injuries and traumatic events, but I did have a friend of mine reach out and say, hey, if you're doing part 2, you can talk about my story. So Will Nace, thank you so much for letting me talk about how you almost got your arm bit off by a freaking alligator. Here's how it happened. Let's go a little bit more in depth with this one. Will has his own story that he tells himself. I'll link in the description on his own channel. Love Will, love his channel. I don't know why you have to be 7 feet tall and make me look silly in pictures together, but besides that, Will was a 21-year-old kid. He started working at Native Village or something. I don't know. It's not around. I tried to Google it. I couldn't find anything. Either way, he worked there. He started doing snake shows, alligator wrestling. I imagine that he learned a lot on the job. I know he has background with reptiles too. And then he did that for quite a few years, right? To the point where he was living at this place, you know, really part of the family, the community at this park. Then Will is 24 years old, and he wakes up one day on July 20th, 2014, and he's had no sleep. He's very tired and probably in a state where you shouldn't be touching venomous snakes or alligators. So he had this kid show up for a birthday party, right? That's a very common thing, birthday parties. So he did a snake show, and then he did an alligator wrestling tutorial or demonstration, whatever you call it. And then the kid's like, hey, can you do a lunge demonstration? So lunge at this park was this alligator that was huge, a bull alligator, big male, 1,000 pounds, 12 feet. This is the size of a small car, okay? Don't mess around with cars with teeth. That's probably not a good idea. Unless you're a trained professional. I've got nothing wrong with doing demonstrations. He wasn't wrestling this alligator. The demonstrations were more of them lunging and feeding and things like that. So in general, he's done this a million times. Not a million, but literally hundreds or maybe thousands of times. I've seen this done. It's generally pretty safe if you know what you're doing and you're paying attention. If you have no sleep and you make a mistake, well, bad news bears. So Will gets in there with lunge and he starts doing the demonstration. And I've talked to Will. He talks kind of like I do with his hands. And then he's talking with his hands. He's not really paying attention. Not that he's being negligent. He just kind of looks over and then lunge, for whatever reason, thought he was getting fed. We learn at the end of Will's video why that is. And then, well, lunge takes a chomp out of his arm. And by out of his arm, he didn't really take a chomp out of it. He grabbed his arm. Because what happens is alligators have giant mouths. So when they get a hold of you, that's it. An alligator bite pressure, Matt will put it in PSI right here, but is insane, crazy, wild. There's almost nothing on the planet like it. So if they get your arm, that's it. It's like a vice with teeth in it. He realizes, okay, if I try to rip my arm away, I'm going away with no arm. You're not going to have an arm anymore, okay? No more high tens, high fives only from now on, all right? He realizes as the alligator starts to walk backwards into the water, bad news bears. If he tries to stop that alligator, it's 1,000 pounds. What's Will? Maybe 200 pounds, right? Maybe. I don't know what Will weighs, but he's 17 feet tall. Probably, something like that. So he starts walking with them, kind of a little escort into the pool. The problem is with alligators, they can hold their breath for way longer than me and you. If it was me, I'd be scared to death that I'm going to drown. The alligator stops when Will's about knee deep in the water, so probably chest deep for me. I don't know how many tall jokes we're gonna make in this video. We're just gonna keep going. And then Will, who is an expert with alligators, understands their biology, their behavior, sees this animal, turns into a U shape. When an alligator turns into a U shape, that means, apparently, I didn't know this. Thanks, Will. Learned something new from your video. That it's going to death roll. If you don't know what a death roll is, well, here's a video of what a death roll is for an alligator or a crocodile, or really most crocodilians. And basically what it's doing is it's spinning way faster than the entire body can rotate, which means your arm is going to be able to rotate faster than your whole body, and it's just going to take it out of its socket, whatever your elbow or your shoulder, it's just going to dislocate. Then all it's holding it is tendons and skin, and that's it. Your arm is gone. Will realizes this, grabs a hold of his head, gives him a big bear hug, and when he death rolls, well, Will just gets a face full of mud and just goes, and I think you can realize when this happens, well, Will's arm breaks, just snaps. In fact, the bone was sticking out. It's pretty gruesome, pretty gross. I'm not gonna show you the picture of the broken arm here, but I mean, you can see his arm is all wrapped up. Anyway, so at this point, he's kind of in a position where he's not in the best position, but at least his arm is still attached to his body. His friend runs up, who actually works at the facility, puts his arms up, shows, hey, I'm big, I'm scary. The alligator drops Will and then goes after the friend. They both escape safely. Well, Will wasn't all that safe. I mean, he wasn't unscathed, is what I'm trying to say. So then Will goes to the hospital as apparently he said, I think I need to go to the hospital. Wow, good inclination. Well, so he goes to the hospital and 11 surgeries and $500,000 US later, he has his arm. So I guess he's got some issue with his wrist a little bit and his fingers don't move all that great, like they're together or something like that. But either way, he can still shake your hand, give you high fives, the whole thing. Everything is great with Will now. But he's got a big gnarly scar. And it's funny, I met Will. I talked to Will. I noticed the scar. I didn't ask, didn't know, had no idea. Now I know. So first of all, Will, thanks so much for reaching out and letting me use this story. Really appreciate it. I hope it was kind of humorous the way that I told it. The point is, Will could have died very easily if Will decided to go with his instincts and try to shake and panic and like he'd probably be gone. That alligator probably would have taken him right into the water and that would have been it. And that just goes to show you, it doesn't matter how big you are. I think Will is probably also 12 feet tall and he still couldn't get away from that alligator. So that means that you, a normal sized human being who, you know, you're not going to be able to have any sort of success with an alligator. So unless you're a trained professional, leave alligators alone. And even if you are a trained professional, well, accidents happen. And Will said himself in his video, it was his fault. He was the one flailing his hands around and took his eye off the alligator. I mean, of course, he thought it was being fed because there was a whole incident afterwards. But either way, the point is, these are some creators who almost died doing stuff for people. Not just necessarily you. I don't even think Will was a YouTuber at the time, but he is now. Maybe he was? I don't remember. 2014. Probably not. Either way, let me know. Do you want me to do part 2? I actually have a great, part 3. I have a great idea too, or maybe it's great. You tell me if it's great. I have an idea to do herpetologists or reptile people who have actually died because of reptiles, studying reptiles for the camera, whatever. If you want to see that, let me know in the comment section below. A big thanks to Henson Shaving for sponsoring today's episode. Thank you for hitting like. Thank you for hitting subscribe. Thank you for the Patreon supporters. You guys are amazing. Discounts on merch, videos early. You guys get one-on-ones, all that and more. That's it. Because I do videos on Mondays and Thursdays. That means I'll see you in the next one.